On this episode of Money Matters with Jim Doyle, are you prepared for the financial challenges facing your parents as they age? Guests Barbara Mitchell, Berta Lopera, and Nadine Jans share advice for parents and children. Plan more, worry less. This is Money Matters with Jim Doyle.
In today's show, we're talking about the changing roles and relationships in families as parents age. The evolution of roles can be difficult for both parents and adult children. Families that talk openly about aging, money, and estate planning can have a richer experience. That's why I've invited our guests to share their thoughts on breaking down some of these barriers. But first, I sent Paige to talk about some of the financial challenges of aging.
What do you think is the greatest financial challenge facing your mother as she ages?
I think it's probably preparing for getting old. I think it comes quick and nobody realizes how fast it comes. So having saved for your retirement, senior years is the challenge, and then managing it once you're there.
Apart from the obvious health issues that are going to be mounting as they age, it's also going to be finances and where they'll be living, and whether we can all live in the same place or whether they'll have some individuality, going forward and stuff like that.
I come from an immigrant background. We came to Canada 35 years ago. So my parents are self-employed, or my dad is self-employed. So, his retirement is basically self-funded. So, I think that's a big challenge for a lot of people.
I like how Terry put it, preparing for the financial challenges of getting old. Do you think most people are well prepared?
I don't think so, because there are lots of myths and people procrastinate as well, right? Because nobody wants to accept that the time will come and we leave things for the last moment. And sometimes that last moment is too late.
So I want to bring up that delicate subject, procrastination. How does that affect families?
Yes, procrastination is very common for all of us, but unfortunately I don't think it really is going to help us solve some of the issues that can potentially come up. So the earlier that we can get a start on talking about delicate topic areas, they need to be ongoing, and they also have to occur when families feel that they need to talk about them, but also when they don't need to talk about them, because that's when the procrastination really sets in.
The power of regular conversations. Wow, that's great stuff. We're going to be right back.
And a lot of parents struggle because there's so much fear and shame attached to the moment when they're not able to manage their finances.
In this segment, we're talking about the sometimes reluctant conversations of helping aging parents manage their finances. Where do you think families stumble on this? Barbara?
Well, I think that as a society and as individuals and families, a lot of us are really death avoidant or death phobic, and we don't want to bring up issues that make it seem like our parents are going to die in the near future. And so I think that we just have a general reluctance in general in terms of even bringing up the topics. And we don't want to make our parents feel bad, and we don't want to make them feel old, and we want to give them the kind of dignity that they deserve and the independence that they have. And so sometimes then we can start to make them feel uncomfortable.
Berta, in your role, sometimes we see families making decisions because there isn't that communication. How does that go?
I believe that we should be aware that change is a constant, and we have to talk and we have to plan in advance and to think about the what ifs.
Absolutely. The future is so uncertain for all of us, and we really don't know what changes are going to occur, and so that adds another level of complexity. And because of that, maybe that's a great conversation opener and saying, well, I don't know where we're headed in the future, but maybe we should talk about various scenarios and how we might deal with them as a family. And actually those kinds of conversations can bring families together.
Conversation openers, bringing families together. We asked Nadine Jans, a clinical counselor, for her thoughts on helping aging parents manage their finances. So, what are some early warning signs that parents might need a little bit of help managing their finances?
Yeah, so there's actually a couple. One of them is when you notice that your parent is more confused or has difficulty remembering things. There's a change, really. So stacks of mail in the corner of the living room can actually be one of the indications. Others is when parents are dealing with loss, when there's maybe loss of health or a change in their physical behavior. It can actually lead to difficulty managing the finances as well.
So of course parents will reach out and say, listen, can you help me, right? They say that, right?
That would be so nice if they would do that, yeah. Unfortunately, that is not the reality for everybody. So when you notice any of the signs, it's always good to start a conversation. Ask questions like, hey, how are you doing? I notice there's a lot going on right now. Is there anything that I can help you with? And a lot of parents struggle because there's so much fear and shame attached to the moment when they're not able to manage their finances.
So when we have a major event or the loss of a partner, okay, should we be reaching out to ask if they need help?
It is definitely important to keep in mind that when there's something happening for them, that you reach out not to take over or to control them, but to reach out that you care about them and that you want to be there for them.
So do you think it's important to talk about the fear and shame of not being able to manage one's finances?
Yes, we should help our parents, but there is a presumption of capacity, and it is how we approach that very difficult conversation without judging and without making them feel shame.
Okay. Now, Barbara, that shame stuff, that is so powerful. What are your thoughts?
Yes, I think the shame is pervasive throughout a lot of families, and not being able to feel that you are able to discuss these things in ways that are more natural and more comfortable. And so, yes, I think trying to break down the barriers of shame is really important.
Let's go back to Paige as she asked adult children about their experiences getting involved in their parents' financial lives.
What challenges do you think you might be facing helping your parents to manage their financial future?
Definitely helping them with picking the right advisors, making sure that they're receiving good, unbiased advice, making sure their fees are reduced in retirement and sort of their cost of living is manageable.
Well, we're very, very close, so it's not a challenge for me to assist her in any way. And my mother and father live in my lower level in my home, which helps them because we're together as a family still. And if she needs anything, I'm there financially and emotionally and loving.
I think that I sometimes give them advice what they should buy and not buy, because now they're on a budget, they're not working, and they don't always listen.
Now, a wide range of perspectives being shared. What's your experience with aging Canadians and personal finance?
Well, I think that many families are thinking a lot about personal finances and planning right now, because the current landscape of aging is so different. Our economic climate is different, it's very expensive to live, and that it makes it a lot more complicated for families to have these visions of perfect planning when we don't know where we're headed.
There's a lot of parts that need to be looked at here. What do you think?
Basically, seniors want to age in place. So they fear of having to sell their house, to move to a different neighborhood, and they fear very much institutional care.
So Barbara, we talk about aging in place and dignity. Where do we go with that?
I think that most families, when we talk to them, and most of our senior parents, for example, they want to age in place. They want to be in their comfortable home environment, but sometimes that is not always going to be a reality. So I think that families really need to foresee that although it's ideal to age in place, it may not always be possible.
Well, we want to help them if we can. We'll be right back.
Yeah, I think parents could really just keep their kids engaged and active in their own financial planning. Be open and honest with your kids about your situation as a family.
Welcome back. In this segment, we talk about parents facilitating delicate conversations, what works and what does not.
Well, I know that starting that difficult conversation can be challenging for everybody, and there is help out there. For example, Seniors First sale line, so it's a good starting point. It's a toll-free line and helps people with tips to start those challenging conversations.
Wonderful. Now, Barbara, what doesn't work?
I think that what won't work is if parents start to approach the topic from a standpoint that it's just too much about finances or too much about money, and that it should really be brought up in the whole context of the quality of life for the whole family and for everybody that's involved.
Now let's go back to Paige as she talks about parents helping the kids navigate these conversations.
What do you think our parents could do to help their kids, help them manage their financial futures?
Well, I think that they could, over a month, track what they spend now that they are not working, and maybe compare what they used to spend and then adjust it accordingly.
Teach them the value of money, teach them the value of hard work, teach them to save and not indulge at every whim, to be prepared.
I think talking to your kids about money really early on makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of it in the education system before you enter college or university, so that's a big flaw in my opinion. I wish money management was taught when you're really young. Parents could really just keep their kids engaged and active in their own financial planning. Be open and honest with your kids about your situation as a family.
So we see a real reluctance for families to be open and honest about their finances. What are you seeing out there, Barbara?
Yeah, I agree that there are a lot of parents who could actually be teaching their children more about financial literacy from a very young age. And this is actually going to help that family navigate the terrain of financial futures.
Now, Berta, a big part of your world is the breakdown in that financial literacy that the kids sometimes have. What types of things are you seeing?
Well, first of all, I believe that there is some sense of entitlement, and people should be aware that perhaps it is going to be their inheritance, but not yet.
Wonderful. Now, Barbara, I think we had a bad box opened there when we start talking about entitlement. Is that still pretty prevalent?
Well, I would have to say that there are definitely some children who feel very entitled to what their parents have worked so hard for. But what I've been seeing is most children really want their parents to have a great life, and they feel that they deserved everything they earned. And in terms of helping their parents out in later life, it's something that most children actually want to do. They want to be able to help their parents financially.
So two sides of the same coin. Let's go back to Nadine as she explores parents pushing back when their kids offer to help manage their finances. What happens when parents either resist or get angry when their kids offer to help manage their financial affairs?
One thing that is really important is that the parents are not being personal to their children, even though it can feel like that. There's usually a lot of fear or shame attached to the whole topic, to the whole subject. And what often is underneath is that the parents are afraid that they're losing control. They fear that other people are going to take over, and that they lose their autonomy and independence.
So how would you encourage the kids to kind of break through in this type of a discussion?
So first of all, it's really important for the adult children to recognize how they're doing around the topic, and to know that it's about starting the conversation, that to let the parents know that they care about them. It's about helping the parents to stay independent and what support they need to do that.
So you've raised a good point here. You know, if that parent's a little closed off and doesn't want to open up, what tip would you have for the adult child maybe to open up that conversation?
So there's actually a couple ways, and in every situation it can be different. But one of the very successful ways has been for some of my clients to talk about their friend's situation where things went in the wrong direction. And you can actually use that as an example. Hey, we don't want this to happen for us. And that can be a conversation starter.
Now, what happens if they absolutely can't break through? Are there any options still open?
Of course, it's always good to find for professional help. Sometimes parents just don't want to share anything with their adult children. And with professional help, there might be different avenues that can be explored.
I've captured 3 elements here. Afraid of losing control, someone will take over. Losing autonomy. And these are definitely anxious moments. Barbara, have we missed anything?
I think that that was pretty good coverage of those particular issues. I do know that lots of seniors do really value their independence and autonomy, and that at the same time can make it difficult for children to start some of those conversations.
Now, Berta, what do you see when we talk about these items?
I believe that Nadine went right to the point. So, and it is how you approach. So don't try to babysit your parents, don't try to take over, respect capacity, and don't point fingers.
Barbara, quick response?
Absolutely, and I think that we don't want to start to be really paternalistic with our parents and make them feel that they aren't intelligent enough to be able to be aware of these things. But at the same time, if it's done within a caring environment, that will make all the difference.
Let them know you care without taking over. We'll be right back.
Take your time as a family to move through this and ask for help when you're struggling, when you're at the point that you don't know what to do. Ask for help.
Talking about the changing roles and relationships in families as parents age. It's now time for our panel's final thoughts. Berta, what would you like to share?
Well, again, that having that open conversation is very important, and having proper advice because things can be between families very informal, very casual, and it can have devastating consequences.
Now, I know you have something else you want to talk to us about.
Yes, I want to talk briefly about the private care agreements. That basically is an arrangement between parent and children, or an older adult and close friend. For example, I give you my house in the promise that I can age there. You are going to support me, you are going to help me. And when people don't disclose and think about all of the what ifs, and don't put that in writing, the consequences can be devastating.
Sounds like the conversations that are not had hurt the worst. Let's go back to Nadine for her final thoughts.
So it's really important for everybody to know that all adults have the right to live at risk to some point. It's about starting the conversation. It's about finding that connection together. And not so much about finding quick solutions or overnight fixes for the problems that have built up over time.
So what does a typical day in your world look like?
So I see a variety of families struggling with similar issues, and what I find is that a lot of my clients are older adults, and they share that they don't want to bother their children. They don't want to be a burden.
That's huge. I hear a lot of that.
You hear that too? Yeah, definitely. And what I find is that there's often this fear to bother each other or to cross boundaries, and that's why both parties are not talking. And I think it's really important for them, for both sides, to open up that conversation and see what comes up and what's there.
So if you had one final tip, what would that be?
Remember that it's a process, and remember that you need take your time as a family to move through this and ask for help when you're struggling, when you're at the point that you don't know what to do. Ask for help.
So the last one on the subject is yours, Barbara.
My best advice would be to get an early start on these conversations. Don't wait until there's some kind of a crisis. Family roles and responsibilities are going to change so much over the life course. So start early, revisit the issues, and really try to make this part of the family conversation that happens as we all age.
So we're looking to deepen family relationships. What's your last tip on the subject?
My last tip, again, would just be to get an early start, and for parents and children to also seek professional assistance if they feel there's some areas that are more sensitive or a little bit more difficult to be able to deal with.
Finding some courage to have these tough conversations. So much more we could have covered, but we ran out of time. I want to thank Berta, Nadine, and Barbara for taking the time to talk with us today on Money Matters. Because financial aspects touch so many elements of our lives, it pays to get great advice. Plan more, worry less.